This is a time of celebration, so sit still and be quiet.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 satisfying deaths of hated TV characters.
Who's been in here? Yo, in case math ain't your jam, you know I got like 50 pounds on you easy.
My dogs are desperate to meet you. I haven't fed them for 7 days. They're ravenous.
Probably throw attempted murder at you. 25 years. You'll get out just in time for menopause.
For this list, we'll be looking at hated television characters who received a much-deserved and satisfying comeuppance. Naturally, there will be spoilers. Which of these characters did you hate the most? Let us know in the comments below. Number 20, Steve NEWLIN, True Blood. NEWLIN begins the series as a talented orator and televangelist who openly speaks against the rights of vampires.
You vampires cast the first stone by killing my family. The lines have been drawn. You're either with us or against us.
He's a hateful bigot, a fraud, and the leader of the Soldiers of the Sun, an elite paramilitary group of vampire hunters. He eventually becomes a vampire himself and becomes a subject of study for the vampire police. In retaliation for some major deaths, Eric prevents Steve from drinking some life-saving blood, and he burns to death under direct sunlight while proclaiming his love for Jason. Few things are as narratively satisfying as watching the downfall of a bigot.
I love you. Jason Stackhouse!
Number 19, Dr. Oliver Thredson, American Horror Story, Asylum. Often regarded as one of the best seasons of American Horror Story, Asylum contains a terrific villain in Zachary Quinto's Oliver Thredson.
I think I made a wrong turn.
I see you found my little hobby.
Thredson is a professional psychiatrist who declares Kit Walker insane to frame him as Bloodyface. Thredson is the real Bloodyface who skins his female victims and makes furniture out of their remains. He also torments Lana, resulting in her unwanted son, Johnny Morgan. Morgan himself takes his father's mantle as the second Bloodyface in 2012. Like his father, Morgan meets a satisfying and violent fate, with Lana shooting him in the head. Rewarding revenge also had something to do with it.
I have no use for you anymore. Best you should just be known as my last victim.
Number 18, Richie April, The Sopranos. Nobody really likes Janice Soprano, but she did everyone a major favor by whacking Richie April. The Sopranos is filled with detestable people and hateful villains, and Richie April is certainly one of them. Belligerent from the start, Richie never listens to orders and directly goes against Tony at every turn. He's also incredibly vicious and violent, even by Sopranos standards. Not to mention homophobic towards his own son. In fact, it's his hateful traits that result in his surprising death, as a ticked-off and recently punched Janice whacks him during dinner. It wasn't the death we were expecting, but it was wonderfully satisfying nonetheless. Number 17, Jonathan Blackjack Randall, Outlander. This historical drama is based on a series of novels by Diana Gabaldon. She describes her creation of Blackjack Randall as a, quote, sadistic bisexual pervert, and that's really all you need to know.
Get off me, you bastard.
The speech of a lady, the language of a whore.
Played to perfection by Tobias Menzies, Randall has the appearance of a noble British officer, but he's actually a remorseless man with sadistic tendencies. In fact, he seeks sexual gratification by inflicting both physical and spiritual pain on his victims, breaking them down both mentally and physically. Jamie finally got his revenge in the season 3 premiere by stabbing Randall in the gut. He dies holding the man he long tormented, and we were glad to finally see him go. Number 16, Principal Snyder, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Congratulations to the class of 1999. You all proved more or less adequate.
The principal of Sunnydale High School, Snyder often covered up the supernatural goings-on through flimsy excuses and an authoritarian regime. Snyder hates teenagers, despite being a high school principal, and holds the reputation of his high school in greater regard than the health and safety of his students. Put simply, this was everyone's hated principal elevated to a near satiric degree. It was intensely satisfying then to watch him get eaten alive by the ascended mayor. It was hilarious, ridiculous, and even a little shocking, a combination in which Buffy often excelled.
This is not orderly. This is not discipline. You're on my campus, buddy. And when I say I want quiet, I mean...
Number 15, Ian Reed, Luther. Serving as the primary antagonist of the first season, Ian Reed is a fellow police officer and a close friend of Luther's. However, his mental state collapses following an orchestrated robbery that resulted in numerous deaths. He turns viciously cold-blooded and paranoid, even offing Bill and Sugarman to keep his secret. Reed lost all semblance of sympathy after taking out Luther's wife Zoe and framing him for the death. In the end, Reed allows himself to die at the hands of Alice Morgan, deciding that death was a better outcome than prison. He died on his terms, which was certainly a bit frustrating, but it was still nice getting him out of the picture for good.
Do it! No!
Number 14, Kilgrave, Jessica Jones. Despite being a Marvel property, Jessica Jones is a down-to-earth and dramatic glimpse into trauma and PTSD. These themes are mostly traced to antagonist Kilgrave, real name Kevin Thompson. Thompson received mind-controlling powers after being subjected to experiments, and he kept Jessica Jones as his prisoner.
You call making me murder a woman ending roughly?
No, let's be clear. I did not tell you to kill Reva.
What?
If you remember, I said take care of her, not kill her. You chose to punch her.
This horrific experience left Jones a broken woman, and breaking from superhero tradition, she kills Kilgrave in cold blood by snapping his neck. It was narratively and personally fulfilling, but it too left a permanent mental stain on Jones, who began to grapple with her murderous intentions. This type of narrative complexity helped make Jessica Jones both a challenging and rewarding experience.
Smile.
Number 13, Yvonne V. Parker, Orange is the New Black. Taking place inside a prison, Orange is the New Black contains its fair share of hateable villains, but none were as bad as V. Serving as the main antagonist of the second season, V is a manipulative sociopath who easily controls others. She gets into a war with Red over the prison's smuggling operation and starts a cult-like family, turning Tasty against Poussey and manipulating Suzanne into doing her violent bidding.
So I'm telling you, do not let her drag you into that shit. She is not your real friend.
Like all the greatest villains, V is smart and hard to beat, but her empire eventually crumbles, and after escaping from the prison, she's run over by a fleeing Rosa in one of the show's most darkly hilarious sequences. She finally got her comeuppance, and it was glorious. Number 12, Arthur Mitchell, Dexter. The fourth season of Dexter is often heralded as its greatest, and John Lithgow's Arthur Mitchell, also known as the Trinity Killer, is its most famous antagonist. Part of that reputation is owing to Lithgow's incredible performance as he masterfully balances everyday normality, remorse, and unhinged psychopathy.
Mom, Becca, me! You're killing us!
And part of it is undoubtedly due to Rita Morgan's death, which is arguably Dexter's most famous and shocking moment. In total, Trinity is attributed to a staggering 279 deaths. In the end, Trinity is bludgeoned with a hammer, and television fulfillingly disposed one of its most depraved characters.
Now it's over.
Number 11, Rosalind Shays, LA Law. An enormous hit throughout the late 80s and early 90s, LA Law was a legal drama that explored many important hot-button issues of the time.
If you believe, like our founding fathers, that government is the responsibility of the governed, and that includes paying for it, then you'll find Upton Weeks guilty.
It's both a thrilling drama in its own right and a glorious glimpse into late 80s America. The show's main antagonist was Rosalind Shays, a money-hungry, controlling, and merciless woman whom audiences loved to hate. And her death, while satisfying, was also unquestionably random. After speaking with Leland, Rosalind turns to enter the elevator, only the elevator isn't there and Rosalind plummets to her death. It was wonderful getting the icy Rosalind out of the picture, but the show soon veered into ridiculous soap opera territory and never quite recovered.
I really don't want to talk about it.
Oh my God!
Number 10, Dr. Robert Romano, ER. Arguably the most famous medical procedural in television history, ER ran for 15 seasons and 331 episodes between 1994 and 2009. For 7 of those seasons, Paul McCrane starred as everyone's favorite grump, Robert Romano.
I'm sorry, I just assumed as a prosthetist that you would have some rudimentary knowledge of medicine.
I have a degree in bioengineering.
Oh, okay. Well, then you have a vague civilian concept of what doctors do. See, I'm what's called a surgeon. That's why I was very specific about needing a Utah arm.
Eventually serving as the chief of staff, Romano is the ultimate boss from hell, known for his unkind comments and relentless sarcasm. Romano loses his arm in a helicopter accident in the 9th season premiere, a moment that skirts the line between shocking and soap opera silliness. And right before he can lodge a complaint against Greg, Romano dies by a falling helicopter. No, seriously, that's how he goes out. It's totally random and completely bizarre, but also undeniably enjoyable. Number 9, Todd Alquist, Breaking Bad.
Just so you know, this isn't personal.
For a good chunk of Breaking Bad's run, the antagonist role is filled by Gus Fring, the methamphetamine magnate who's blown up in a nursing home. Gus was a beloved character, but there's no denying the satisfaction of that death, especially the famous face or lack thereof reveal. On the other hand, Todd is a malicious villain who inflicts suffering on Jesse, fraternizes with white supremacists, and worse.
No!
Unlike Gus, viewers desperately wanted to see him go. So it was a welcome surprise when Jesse strangled Todd with his own handcuffs. There's a certain poetic beauty to Jesse taking out Todd with the very symbol of his torment and enslavement. Number 8, Ralph Cifaretto, The Sopranos. As horrible as Richie April was, he has nothing on Ralph Cifaretto. Played by the legendary character actor Joe Pantoliano, Ralph was a psychopath from the start.
What did you say? Who's crew?
You're the boss. You get to put in anybody you want over the crew.
You're a captain, Ralphie, when I say you're a captain.
And I'm gonna turn up my hearing aid so I don't miss it.
Like Richie, he was openly belligerent and often made a public point of antagonizing Tony. But his worst moment came in season 3, when he viciously beat Tracy to death outside the Bing. It's often regarded as one of the darkest moments on The Sopranos, and it permanently altered how audiences viewed Ralph. His surprising death in season 4 was a long time coming, and just as Ralph did to Tracy, Tony beats Ralph to death inside of his own home. It's a brutal fight that proves difficult to watch, but it was also gloriously rewarding and cathartic. Number 7, Ramsay Bolton, Game of Thrones. Few things were as pleasing as seeing Ramsay Bolton tied to a chair and devoured by his own hounds. Ramsay was one of the most sadistic characters on the show, and his crimes are too numerous to count.
Please, no, please don't leave me. Please don't go.
He betrays House Stark and raises Winterfell. He abuses Theon and turns him into the weak and submissive Reek. He forces himself on Sansa Stark in one of the show's most controversial scenes.
We've known Sansa since she was a girl. Now watch her become a woman.
He wipes out his entire family to take control of the North. He toys with Rickon Stark before the arrows get him. Fortunately, the subsequent Battle of the Bastards proves Ramsay's downfall, and he's torn apart by his own bloodthirsty pups. His desperate pleas prove one pleasurable sound. Number 6, George Foyet, Criminal Minds. Arguably the greatest antagonist in Criminal Minds history, the Boston Reaper served as the primary villain of seasons 4 and 5.
Tell me, I'm not telling you anything.
You are not gonna get off that easy.
Real name George Foyet, the Reaper plagued the Boston area throughout the 90s and 2000s. Some of his most prominent victims include his own parents, his girlfriend, and the lead detective studying his case. The Reaper has often been compared to numerous real-life monsters, including the Zodiac, Ted Bundy, Dennis Rader, and David Berkowitz. His gratifying downfall comes at the literal hands of Hotch, who beats the Reaper to death after finding Haley dead.
You got me. I surrender. I surrender.
Number 5, Viserys Targaryen, Game of Thrones. Before Ramsay Bolton, there was Viserys Targaryen. Viserys was one of the main antagonists of the first season, serving as Daenerys' psychotic and power-hungry older brother.
You dare! You give commands to me! To me! You do not command the dragon. I am Lord of the Seven Kingdoms.
Hoping to reclaim Westeros for the Targaryen name, Viserys orchestrated an army consisting of Khal Drogo and his Dothraki. Viserys was horrible towards Daenerys, even offering her body to Khal Drogo in exchange for his army. But Viserys' ego proves too great, and he drunkenly accosts Drogo. Following some personal threats, Viserys is given a crown of gold, that being hot liquid gold poured over his head. It's both narratively and thematically enticing, with the arrogant Viserys being given the crown he so desperately deserved.
A crown for a king.
Number 4. Agent June Stahl, Sons of Anarchy. Serving as an antagonist for the first 3 seasons, ATF Agent Stahl is tasked with investigating the Sons of Anarchy and their criminal exploits in small-town charming California.
You didn't have to humiliate the guy.
You're the one who got this ball rolling, Sparky. You want to play in my backyard or the cow pastures?
I want to stop Sam Crow.
Good. Then let's catch up.
A very cold individual, Stahl somehow managed to tick off everyone around her with her arrogant personality, flawed investigation, and penchant to cause trouble. For example, she was indirectly responsible for the death of Opie's wife Donna following her flawed attempts to turn Opie against the club. But Opie gets his revenge in one of television's most gratifying sequences, directly referencing Donna's death right before shooting Stahl in the back of the head. Finally, after 3 seasons and lots of complex conniving, Agent Stahl was finished.
This is what she felt.
Number 3. Philip Blake, The Walking Dead.
Take off your shirt, or I'll bring Glenn's hand in here.
This zombie show has long made the argument that humans are more dangerous than the undead, and that theme is perfectly personified through the Governor, also known as Philip Blake. The Governor earned his nickname by leading the fortified town of Woodbury. But don't let that noble distinction fool you. The Governor is an unhinged psycho who commits horrific acts of violence. Even the utopic nature of Woodbury is flawed, and it contains a brutal underbelly overseen by the authoritarian governor. While invading the prison, the governor is stabbed in the back by Michonne, and millions the world over cheered as he lay dying. He's finally put down by Lily, and The Walking Dead was rid of its most hateable, yet also its most popular villain. Number 2. Red John, The Mentalist.
Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night. What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry?
The Mentalist concerns a fraudulent psychic medium who helps the California Bureau of Investigation solve murders. Said mentalist is named Patrick Jane, and his wife and daughter died at the hands of Red John. Red John is believed to have taken upwards of 70 lives throughout the southwestern United States and Mexico, and Jane's pursuit of the elusive Red John provides tantalizing mystery for the first 5 seasons of the show. Audiences and Jane eventually learn that Red John is Napa County Sheriff Thomas McAllister, and he's strangled to death by Jane in retaliation for the deaths of his family.
He's sorry that you killed my wife, Angela, and my daughter, Charlotte. Good.
We don't know who was more relieved, the audience or Jane. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Joffrey Baratheon, Game of Thrones. Few television villains are as depraved and unlikable as Joffrey Baratheon. Unlike some other villains on this list, there are absolutely no redeeming qualities about Joffrey. He's simply a pure, unfiltered psychopath who takes pleasure in death, as well as inflicting pain, suffering, and psychological torment.
You will bring her to his chambers when you're finished and show him what you've done.
For 3 seasons, audiences couldn't stand the sight of Joffrey, and he was widely heralded as television's biggest baddie. That is, until he drank a cup of poison in season 4 and died gasping in his mother's arms. The death is horrific and grotesque, but watching Joffrey finally squirm in pain and panic offered a certain kind of satisfaction. Sorry, Cersei, but everyone agreed that your son had to go.
I'd never seen the poison work before. Tell Cersei. I wanted to know it was me.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.